I taught for 14 years. I taught music. I was a band director. I taught choir. I taught some general music. You know, the routine, you kind of do what your certification allows you to do so that you can have that job. I taught for 2 years in Anderson after I was at Ball State, graduated from Ball State. 2 years at Anderson Eastside Middle School, which is now closed, unfortunately. But did my student teaching there, got a job position there, first 2 years of teaching. My wife then took a position as a hall director, residence hall director at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. So as a newly married couple, we had some free housing opportunities, so we moved up to Wisconsin and took a job there. I was again, band director for a private school. It was a 200-student high school and a 200-student middle school, private Catholic school. And to this day, it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. It was a great place to work, completely different from anything I'd ever done before, but a great place to work. I actually had an opportunity there my second year to serve as the Dean of Students, so that's when I decided to kind of get my feet wet a little bit in administration. I didn't have to have a license to do it, but I stepped into that. It was that / band director, but I didn't have a lot of students in the band, so I had some free time to do it. And that was my first kind of stint with administration. Took a break after we had our children. We moved back to Indiana, and I taught for 4 years at Angola Middle School and high school. When we came back, trying to get my way closer to Fort Wayne, where we're from, and then spent the last 5 years at Norfolk High School in Fort Wayne. And I had some great experiences. I thought I had a nice variety of urban, rural, private, small school, big school, and I thought then, you know, going into that next step of being an administrator after being a band director is amazing, the amount of time you put in. If you're a coach, if you're a band director, if you're anything that has to do with extracurricular activities, and you want to go into administration, you won't have as much of an issue with that time commitment. I actually have a lot more time as a principal than I did as a high school band director. And I didn't think that was going to be the case, but it really is. And I really do try to attend as much as I can at Adams Central. We have a great staff that tries to work it out with each other. If you can't go to something, you know, somebody needs to cover something because of a family event or whatever, our administrative team is awesome. So we get those things covered, but as much as I can, I try to attend those events. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit about me. I'm married. My wife works at Indiana Tech in Fort Wayne. She runs a program for students that are underprivileged or under disadvantaged coming into high school, coming into college that might have struggled as a high school student. She runs a program that gets those students settled and set into some good classes and into some good groups of other students. And we have 2 children. I have a 9-year-old son, Cameron. He is a 3rd grader, and a daughter who is 4 1/2 going on 20. So that's a little bit about me. She's a pistol. You guys might have one of those too. This is a little bit about Adams Central, and I'm not going to read through all of this, but we are also a New Tech school, which is a part of the New Tech network. Some of you may be familiar with what that is. Actually, Dave's wife is one of our teachers there at Adams Central, so I'm sure you've heard about Adams Central. He's talked about it. She's a great teacher there. The New Tech Network, obviously, is a project-based learning environment for kids, kind of a different approach, maybe a better way of doing things, or you can say a different way of doing things. And we have a great group of teachers that have been well-trained in the New Tech philosophy and that model, and we're now in our 3rd year of implementation there, and we'll have our last class, our senior class, going through here next year. That will be a full immersion New Tech school. New Tech Network likes to have schools that have about 400 students in them, and we're like 404 this year, I think, in our high school. So we were a good fit. We thought that would be a nice thing for us to do. We did not do it in a response to low test scores or in a response to a community wanting a major change. We did it because we're continually trying to get better. I've been there since July, and the one thing that I notice about Adams Central is it's just this kind of continual drive to do something different and better and be innovative. And it's a pretty neat atmosphere there. And already had great test scores going into that school. That was a neat thing to see. Coming from foreign community schools, I was a part of a whole different challenge of trying to figure out how to raise test scores, because that is obviously the golden ticket to everything in this state right now, maybe for right now. But you know, it was neat to be able to see that change and that difference in Adams Central. This, like I said, just kind of gives you a background. They did a nice $10 million renovation a couple of years ago. We're actually in the first full year of the students being able to be in a building that's not in shambles. So it's been nice to be able to work in a place that it's very conducive to learning. It's a beautiful school. I kind of gave you some statistics in here that you can see about the school. If you care, if you don't, you can just have those for your records. I put together our schedule. We have a master schedule on there so you can see what we do at Adams Central. We're on a 7-period day. It works really well with our new tech program. It works well for our students that want to be in extracurriculars, that want to be in co-curriculars, elective classes. Things seem to be scheduled well there. I gave you an example of our professional development that we put together. Obviously that's important in every school. The neat thing about Adams Central, when I came in there, a lot of the systems were already in place, and things didn't have to be reinvented, and I didn't have to make, or virtually didn't have to make any changes. My thing going into that was, if I'm going to be in a position of a principal my first year never doing this, I really am hopeful that the systems are already in place, because it's a nerve-wracking thing. I mean, to go in there and not know anything about it and not be afraid to admit that. It's been really nice that the systems are in place. It's been extremely, extremely helpful. Just a school calendar, and then really the main thing I wanted to talk with you guys about is the kind of the quick tips thing, and just from my perspective as a first-year principal. As I said before, I spent the last 5 years at Northern High School. I have never had a job that has been as hard as being with that band director at that high school in my life. It was almost ridiculous. I couldn't believe the time commitment. I missed the last 5 years of my kids' lives because I was committed to that job because of the time commitment. I counted in a school year 3 Saturdays outside of the vacation Saturdays that you would have over holidays that I was home with my family on a day that would have been 6 in the morning until 2 o'clock the next morning with that band, or the bands, or the show choirs, or whatever it was. Absolutely insane. And my wife said, when you get into being an administrator, I know that everybody says it's going to be busy, but she says, I just pray that it's not that busy. I'll support you, but I pray that it's not that busy. She and I have been shocked. After this last fall, and again, like I said, just to make the attempt to go to about everything that I can go to, I still have an enormous amount of time. And it all comes down to the scheduling and always thinking about your family and putting them first. It's completely doable. I don't care if you're, I would assume that if you're at a very large school, you're going to have multiple people that can try to cover events and to help each other out. And my worry was going into a small school, being the principal, not having an assistant, that I was never going to be home again. And fortunately, it just doesn't work that way. The team is so solid there between the middle school and the high school and the elementary, and the superintendent is a gentleman that I have never encountered as a superintendent in a school district before. He is outside every day. He is giving the kids high fives. He's greeting the parents. He's out at the buses. It's sort of like he's one of the principals there. It's a really cool thing. He's a great guy. You see him all the time. He's at everything. What superintendent will attend all of the home football games or attend all of the basketball games, volleyball games? You see him at all of these events. It's just a really, really neat thing to have him there and be that strong of an advocate for the kids and the community. He's also been there for 10 years. So, superintendents don't typically last that long, but he's there for the long haul. I think that's where he's going to retire. He's just done a great job there. So anyway, the time commitment, just be kind of aware of that and just know that it's definitely doable. You just have to manage your time and take care of yourself so you can take care of your family, take care of your schedule, and just be organized with it. I always put kids first. I think we all do that as educators, and that's the thing that I think always has to be key. And when you're doing the SLLA and taking that exam, just like Stacy said, I just wanted to get through that thing, and I wanted to say so much more, but I kept thinking, be concise, be short, be concise. And it's stressful, but if you just take your time with it and try to work through it. I am also a terrible test taker. When we used to have to take the NTE, I passed it by 1 point on the first try, but by 1 point, so I almost didn't pass it. I'm horrible test taker, horrible. I never had high SAT, none of that stuff. I was just not good at it. And so my worry, and he knew I was stressed beyond belief because I kept thinking, I'm going to be the guy that didn't pass this the first time. I'm going to be that guy.
I already said this to him. I've never had a student not pass on the first time.
And that's a killer because he said
Yeah,
that.
he
I
said
say
that.
that to him. Don't forget, Jason, I've never had.
Yeah.
I think the girls were more worried about it than the guys were. We were terrified.
Well, and one of our members of our cohorts now was actually serving as the principal at Wabash Middle School. And he kept saying, this is going to look so stupid because my staff is all excited. They're like, good luck on your test, good luck on your test. And he's like, what if I fail that thing? So he was really worried that he wasn't going to pass the test. And we got through it.
And you guys took it together.
Yeah, we did. And he took that thing, I swear he got it done in 20 minutes. So the whole time I'm thinking, I am really going to fail this because I went to the last 20 seconds before I finally closed out that screen. And I thought, this is not, I was really worried about it. But it was fine. I got through it. So you'll get through it. That's easier said than done when you're in the middle of it and worry about it. As I have done this now for one 9-week grade period, the one thing I reflect on is everybody said you gotta love teaching, you gotta love teaching, and a part of me wanted to get out of teaching because I thought I was burnt on it a little bit. I thought, well, I need to change. Something needs to refresh me a little bit here. I'm frustrated. I don't want to do it. I can't believe how much I loved teaching now that I've done this for 11 weeks. I can't believe how much I love teaching. And I miss being with the kids and the band and doing all of that. When I went to the contests, it was I had a tough couple of weeks during that season where I told my wife, I was like, wow, I don't know. I really miss this. I love being with these kids. And then I talked to a few people, and you're going to have that. There has to be a little bit of that. Well, I miss doing this. I miss being in my classroom. I miss just being able to be in a place where I can shut the door and not have to make all the decisions, or to at least try to find the answer to all of the questions. It would be nice just to go back to my little classroom and not have to deal with it. Then you start to think about it more and know why you did it. And I know why I did it, and I'm blessed, and I'm so glad I did. But you'll have those times where you think, I really did love teaching. This was a cool thing, and I was blessed to be able to do it. And just to have that in the back of your mind, I thought that was an important thing, and I wanted to kind of share. Be ready to listen and learn. I have to listen constantly, and I always want to try to have the answer and help people to feel better right away. And unfortunately, I'm not going to have that answer all the time, and sometimes you have to sit on it for a weekend, and sometimes you just have to let it go for a little bit before you can come up with the right answer. But I have a problem with wanting to solve everybody's problems. I just want to fix it right now. And sometimes it's just a matter of the teacher coming in and just being able to say their piece and then going away and not having to give them an answer and just saying, hey, you know what, I appreciate you coming in. I'm going to just think about that for a little bit because I need to think about it instead of trying to solve your problem right now. Another thing there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I ask for help all the time. My superintendent, I spent the first couple of weeks sending him email after email after email just to make sure I was doing it right. And he fortunately allows us to do that. But he also came in and he said, I want you to know that you're doing a great job. Don't worry about asking all the questions. You're allowed to make some mistakes. It's okay. And I was worried about that. And I said, well, I don't want you to ever feel like you made a mistake hiring somebody. I don't want you to feel that way. So I'm going to tell you that I'm checking with you because I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. And again, a great guy and very supportive and helpful, and he's been great about that stuff and letting me just do it, letting me do the job. But also, I'm not afraid to ask for help. If I need something, I'm the guy next door, the middle school principal's awesome. He's been there for 8 years now as the middle school principal, I think 8, maybe more. The secretaries have all been there. I ask the secretaries all the time, how do you do this? What account does that come from? Hey, they know too. They may not have the degree to be the principal, but they know better than I do about a lot of that stuff. And my secretary it's like my right-hand man. She just is. She's great. And I ask her for a ton of help. Find a mentor, someone you can trust and is respected in the profession. I think that's important. And I don't care if that's at your school. I tell my former principal all the time about little things. I think that's a critical part. Be ready to